September 24th, 1999, Pine Bluff, Arkansas. Twilight was descending on the small town, bringing with it the coolness of early autumn. The leaves of the sycamore trees along the main street were just beginning to turn yellow, but the evening air was already filled with the season's characteristic freshness. On such evenings, the people of Pine Bluff usually did not linger on the streets, hurrying home to warmth and comfort. But at the Blue Diner on the outskirts of town, life continued to boil until late in the evening. Ashley Montgomery, 23 years old, was wiping down the bar in the last minutes of her shift. Her brown hair was gathered into a high ponytail, and her blue apron with the cafe's logo was stained with ketchup residue from a busy day at work. The clock on the wall showed 10 minutes past 11 in the evening. Tired? Martha Higgins, an older waitress who had been working at the cafe longer than anyone else, asked. She was packing her things, preparing to leave. Not much, Ashley smiled, stacking clean glasses on a shelf. There were surprisingly many visitors today for a Thursday. From the testimony of Martha Higgins, recorded on September 26, 1999, Ashley looked her usual self. Maybe a little more tired, but nothing out of the ordinary. She said she planned to stop at the drugstore on the way home to get some medicine for her mother. I didn't notice anything else noteworthy that evening. At 10:30 in the evening, Ashley finished her shift. She changed in the back room, wearing jeans, a white t-shirt, and a light denim jacket. She put her work uniform in a backpack and slung it on her shoulder. According to her co-workers, she was in a good mood. She even hummed a popular song as she gathered her hair into a bun in front of the mirror. "See you guys tomorrow." She waved goodbye to the remaining employees and walked out the back door into the company parking lot. The parking lot of the Blue Diner was dimly lit by a single streetlight, creating a patch of yellow light in the center of the paved lot. The perimeter was lined with old oak trees that cast thick shadows. There were 5 cars in the parking lot that evening. 3 belonged to employees, including Ashley Montgomery's white 1995 Ford Taurus, 1 belonged to the last delayed customer, and 1, a black pickup truck, had never been identified by the investigation. James Peterson, the night security guard at the cafe, was the only person who saw Ashley in the final moments before her disappearance. His testimony, dated September 25, 1999, formed the basis of the initial investigation. I went on duty at 10 o'clock at night and was making my rounds of the grounds. At 10:35, I saw Ashley leaving the building. She headed to her car, but did not make it to her. There was a man in the parking lot who called out to her average height, wearing a dark jacket and a baseball cap. I couldn't see his face because of the distance and low light. They talked about something. I couldn't hear what the conversation seemed calm. No signs of aggression. I assumed it was someone Ashley knew and continued my walk around. When I returned to the parking lot 15 minutes later, neither Ashley nor the man were there. Ashley's car was still parked, which I thought was odd, but I thought maybe she had left with the man and would come back later to get her car. The next morning, September 25th, Carol Montgomery, Ashley's mother, sounded the alarm when her daughter did not return home and did not answer numerous phone calls. Ashley's parents immediately contacted the Pine Bluff Police Department. Ashley had never disappeared like this before, Carol told through tears to reporters at the local newspaper a few days later. She always let me know if she was running late, always called if something changed in her plans. She's a very responsible girl. Ashley's father, Richard Montgomery, an engineer at the local power station, added, "We knew something was wrong as soon as morning came and she wasn't home. This is totally unlike her." Pine Bluff police immediately launched an investigation. Ashley's car was found in the parking lot of the Blue Diner Cafe in the same spot where she had left it the evening before. Forensics found no signs of a struggle in or around the car. Ashley's car keys, purse, and cell phone were missing. From Detective Michael Clark's report, dated September 26th, 1999. An examination of Ashley Montgomery's last known location revealed no obvious signs of forced abduction. The victim's vehicle was locked, no signs of forced entry. The interior is clean, no signs of a struggle. Tire tracks were found on the asphalt surface of the parking lot, believed to belong to several vehicles, including an unidentified black pickup truck reported by the security guard. However, due to rain on the night of September 24th to 25th, many of the tire tracks were washed away. A check of the CCTV cameras was inconclusive. The only camera installed at the entrance to the cafe did not cover the area of the parking lot where Ashley was last seen. Footage from nearby traffic cameras was seized for analysis, but the image quality was too poor to identify passing cars in the dark. For the first 24 hours after Ashley's disappearance, police interviewed all of the cafe's employees and regular customers. No one was able to provide information about the mystery man Ashley had been talking to. James Peterson, a security guard, could not recall any distinguishing features of the stranger other than a dark jacket and baseball cap. The town of Pine Bluff, with a population of just over 35,000, was not prepared for such an occurrence. The last case of disappearance of a person here dated back to 1986th year, when a tourist from Texas disappeared, later found alive and unharmed in a neighboring state. The disappearance of a young, well-liked girl shocked the local community. Police Major Robert Hammond issued a statement to residents on September 27th. "We are using all available resources to search for Ashley Montgomery. The Pine Bluff Police Department is working closely with the Arkansas State Police. We are asking anyone with any information about Ashley's whereabouts or incidents seen on the evening of September 24th in the area of the Blue Diner to contact us immediately." A considerable force was thrown into the search for Ashley Montgomery. Police combed the vicinity of the cafe and the woods and fields around Pine Bluff. Volunteers from among the local residents organized search teams that methodically surveyed abandoned buildings, ravines, and other places where the missing girl could be. The investigation revealed that Ashley Montgomery had worked at the Blue Diner Cafe for about 2 years, since graduating from a local college where she was studying business administration. According to her parents and friends, Ashley planned to save money to continue her education at the University of Arkansas. She was a goal-oriented girl, her best friend Jennifer Wilson told a local television station. Ashley always knew what she wanted out of life. She dreamed of opening her own restaurant here in Pine Bluff. She loved this town and would never leave without a word. The investigation revealed that 3 weeks before her disappearance, Ashley had broken off her engagement to her fiancé, Brian Turner, whom she had been dating for 4 years. According to Jennifer Wilson, the breakup was uneasy, but not hostile. Ashley said they just grew out of the relationship. Brian was upset, but not aggressive. Police interviewed Brian Turner on September 26th. His alibi for the evening of Ashley's disappearance was confirmed by several witnesses. He was at the Red Rooster Bar with friends between 9 p.m. and 2 a.m. The bar's CCTV cameras also confirmed his presence. The first days of the search yielded no significant results. Ashley's cell phone was disconnected immediately after her disappearance, with the last calls made to her mother and a friend on the afternoon of September 24th. Ashley's bank account remained untouched. From a police report dated September 30th, 1999. An extended search radius yielded no positive results. Divers surveyed nearby bodies of water, including Pine Lake and the Arkansas River, within 10 miles of the disappearance. Search dogs were unable to pick up the trail due to past rains. The investigation is continuing, the main theory being abduction by an unknown person. On the evening of September 24th, 1999, it rained in Pine Bluff, which, as it later turned out, washed away many of the potential clues from the scene of Ashley's disappearance. This rain, as the county sheriff remarked in an interview, seemed to be purposely helping the perpetrator to cover his tracks. In the first days of October, 1999, An extensive survey was made of all abandoned buildings within a 15-mile radius of Pine Bluff. The old Townsend hardware store, which had closed 6 months before Ashley's disappearance due to bankruptcy, attracted the attention of the police. The building was only 2 miles from the Blue Diner Cafe. However, an inspection of the abandoned store yielded no leads. In the words of the store's former owner, Harry Townsend, the police thoroughly inspected the premises, including the warehouse and outbuildings. They even checked the cellar, although we rarely used it because of the damp. Nothing suspicious was found. Time passed, and the investigation did not progress. By the end of October, search operations were scaled back, although the case officially remained open. Ashley's parents, Richard and Carol Montgomery, refused to give up hope. They set up a volunteer center in their garage. From where they coordinated the search, Ashley's photos were hung throughout the city and sent to neighboring communities. "We won't stop until we find our daughter," Richard Montgomery said in a local television interview on November 1st, 1999. "Ashley is out there somewhere, and she needs our help." By early October of 1999, the search for Ashley Montgomery had taken on a scale unprecedented in Pine Bluff. The city's small police department was forced to call for help from the Arkansas State Police and neighboring counties. The disappearance of the young woman became the top story on all local news. On October 2nd, 2 special agents from the Arkansas Bureau of Investigation, Lauren Howard and Dennis Malcolm, arrived in Pine Bluff. Both had experience in missing persons investigations and led the operation, temporarily setting up headquarters in the local police building. "It has been 8 days since Ashley Montgomery disappeared," Agent Howard said at a press briefing on October 3rd. "Statistics say that the chances of finding a missing person alive are decreasing every day. However, we are not giving up hope and are utilizing all available resources. We are asking residents of Pine Bluff and the surrounding area to remain vigilant and report any suspicious circumstances." Agents reviewed all of the materials collected by the Pine Bluff Police Department and developed a new plan of action. The search area was expanded to 30 miles around the city. To facilitate the search operation, the agents divided the area into 6 sectors, each of which was assigned a letter code. In the words of Agent Malcolm, recorded in the official report, "We are giving special attention to Sector 1, the area northeast of Pine Bluff, which includes abandoned farmland and an old sawmill. Statistics show that criminals often choose isolated locations to hide evidence of crime. Also of interest are the many abandoned buildings in the city's industrial area, Sector 2. Volunteers from among the locals have joined hands in search teams under the guidance of the police. Every morning, at 7 o'clock, they gathered in the city's central square, were given a briefing and maps with marked areas to explore. By evening, the teams would return, reporting the results of the search. "I have never seen such cohesion in our city," commented Pine Bluff's mayor, Howard Baker. "Over 500 residents are participating in the search every day. People are taking time off work, skipping classes to help find Ashley. It shows how important she is to all of us." Ashley's parents, Richard and Carol Montgomery, never left the volunteer center set up in their garage. They coordinated volunteers, answered phone calls, and distributed flyers with their daughter's picture. Their home became the unofficial headquarters of the search operation. "We've gotten tremendous support from the community," Carol said, barely holding back tears. "Every day we have people coming in who want to help. Some bring food for the volunteers, others offer to use their personal transportation for the search. We are grateful to everyone who was not indifferent to our trouble." While some groups were searching the area, police continued their investigation, questioning anyone who may have had anything to do with Ashley's disappearance. Special attention was paid to 2 prime suspects, Ashley's ex-fiancé, Brian Turner, and her co-worker at the cafe, Nathan Foster. Although Brian Turner's initial alibi was corroborated by several witnesses and surveillance footage of the Red Rooster bar, state agents insisted on re-interviewing him. During an hours-long interview at the police station on October 5th, Brian remained calm, but became visibly nervous at the mention of breaking off the engagement. From the interview transcript, Brian Turner confirmed that the breakup with Ashley Montgomery was initiated by her approximately 3 weeks prior to her disappearance. He said he was upset, but accepted Ashley's judgment, admitted that he called her several times in the days that followed, trying to get the relationship back on track. The last time they spoke was on September 22nd, 2 days before the disappearance. The conversation, according to Turner, was calm, without conflict. When asked why he accepted the breakup so easily after a 4-year relationship, the suspect was visibly nervous and could not give a clear answer. A polygraph that Brian Turner voluntarily agreed to take showed uncertain results on questions related to his emotional state after the relationship broke up, prompting investigators to take a closer look at his alibi. Detective Michael Clark, the Pine Bluff Police Department's case officer, further interviewed all witnesses who confirmed Brian's presence at the Red Rooster Bar on the evening of September 24th. It turned out that between 9 and 10 hours and 30 minutes into the evening, Brian was absent for approximately 40 minutes, explaining to friends that he needed to make a phone call due to poor communications inside the establishment. This creates a window of opportunity for Turner, Agent Howard noted in her October 7th report. The Blue Diner Cafe is only 3 miles from the Red Rooster Bar. Theoretically, the suspect could have driven there in 5 to 7 minutes, crossed paths with the victim, and returned to the bar during the specified time of absence. However, a camera at the intersection of Main Street, located on the route between these establishments, did not record Turner's vehicle during the specified time period. The second prime suspect was Ashley's co-worker at the Blue Diner Cafe, 29-year-old Nathan Foster. According to other co-workers, Nathan had an apparent romantic interest in Ashley that she did not share. Several times he asked her out on dates, receiving polite refusals. From the testimony of Martha Higgins, Nathan wasn't pushy, but everyone knew he was in love with Ashley. He always volunteered to help her with heavy tasks, often complimented her, and sometimes brought her flowers. Ashley was friendly with him, but kept her distance, especially when she was engaged to Brian. After the engagement broke off, Nathan became more assertive in his courtship. Nathan Foster worked at the Blue Diner Cafe as a cook on the morning shift. On the day Ashley disappeared, he finished work at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and, according to him, went home, where he spent the evening alone watching television. No one could confirm his alibi. When police searched Nathan's apartment on October 8th, they found several photos of Ashley, cut from shared photos of the cafe staff, as well as notes with her work schedule for the past 2 weeks. This heightened investigators' suspicions. Under questioning, Nathan looked scared, but insisted on his innocence. "Yes, I was in love with Ashley. Yes, I collected pictures of her. That's not normal, I understand. But I would never hurt her. Never. I was hoping that after I broke up with Brian, I'd have a chance. I wanted to ask her out on a real date." A polygraph revealed that Nathan was telling the truth when he denied any involvement in Ashley's disappearance. However, his car, a dark blue Chevy, looked similar to the black pickup truck that security guard James Peterson said was in the cafe's parking lot the evening of Ashley's disappearance. This circumstance led police to thoroughly examine Nathan's vehicle. Forensics found no trace of Ashley's presence or struggle in Foster's car. Forensics showed that the car had not been thoroughly cleaned recently, which would be logical to expect if there was an attempt to hide evidence. Agent Malcolm commented on the situation in his report. Nathan Foster remains under suspicion, but the evidence of his involvement in Ashley Montgomery's disappearance is insufficient to warrant an arrest. His psychological profile does not fit the typical profile of a kidnapper or murderer. He shows signs of obsessive behavior toward the victim, but there is no evidence that he has ever exhibited aggressive or violent tendencies. On October 10, 1999, Pine Bluff Police Brass, in conjunction with state agents, decided to expand the suspect pool. It now included all employees of the Blue Diner, regular customers of the establishment and residents of the houses nearest to the cafe. The criminal histories of all the men who worked or frequented the area of Ashley's disappearance were checked. Among them were 3 with criminal records. Alan Griffin, 52 years old, convicted of assault in 1984. Thomas Benson, 31 years old, convicted of drug possession in 1997. And William Braxton, 26 years old, placed on probation for shoplifting in 1995. All 3 were questioned and examined. Alan Griffin was in the hospital with an attack of appendicitis on the day of Ashley's disappearance, which completely exonerated him. Thomas Benson was on a fishing trip with 2 friends 50 miles out of town, which was corroborated by witness statements and date and time-stamped photographs. William Braxton, a former storekeeper at the now-closed Townsend hardware store, testified that he was at home that evening with his girlfriend watching a movie. The girlfriend confirmed his alibi. "We have no direct evidence against any of the individuals tested," Agent Howard said at a press briefing on October 12th. "Nevertheless, the investigation is ongoing. We are asking anyone with information about missing Ashley Montgomery or who noticed anything unusual on the evening of September 24th to contact police." Extensive search operations on the area continued until mid-October, but were unsuccessful. Divers resurveyed Pine Lake and nearby sections of the Arkansas River. Canines with search dogs combed all forested areas within a 30-mile radius of the city. State police helicopters with thermal imaging cameras scouted inaccessible areas. From the report of the head of the search operation on October 18th, during the 24 days of the search, an area of about 400 square miles was searched, engaged 23 search parties, totaling more than 600 people. Despite the thoroughness of the search, no trace of Ashley Montgomery has been found. It is recommended that the search operation be scaled back to focus on verifying new evidence, if any. The investigation has reached an impasse. The lack of direct evidence and reliable witnesses made police work much more difficult. By late October, state agents Lauren Howard and Dennis Malcolm were recalled to the state capitol to participate in another investigation. The Ashley Montgomery case was transferred back to the Pine Bluff Police Department, but remained open. On October 25th, 1999, exactly 1 month after the disappearance, a service in Ashley's memory was held at St. Paul's Church in Pine Bluff. Hundreds of people came to show their support for the Montgomery family. Ashley's parents, despite Detective Michael Clark's persistent advice to prepare for the worst, continued to believe their daughter was alive. "We're grateful to everyone who helped in the search," Richard Montgomery said after the service. "But we are not giving up hope. We will continue to search for our daughter until we find her. Ashley is a strong girl. She will make it wherever she is." Pine Bluff police continued to follow the prime suspects, Brian Turner and Nathan Foster, but no new evidence surfaced. Brian went back to work at the auto shop, but complained to friends that he felt like an outcast because of police suspicion. Nathan Foster quit his job at the Blue Diner Cafe and moved to a neighboring town, explaining the constant pressure from the police and the negative attitude of his colleagues. Gradually, life in Pine Bluff returned to normal, but Ashley Montgomery's disappearance left an indelible mark in the minds of the townspeople. The parents set up a bulletin board with their daughter's picture and phone numbers to contact her in the town square. Every week they updated the information and posted new flyers. By the end of the 1999, the official investigation had come to a virtual halt. The Pine Bluff police occasionally checked the information, but most of it was false. Evidence pointing in different directions created confusion in the case, preventing investigators from focusing on one particular theory. The first day of the new millennium was cloudy and cold in Pine Bluff. The town's residents celebrated the coming of the 2000th year with the same restraint that had characterized them in recent months. The disappearance of Ashley Montgomery, a little over 3 months ago, was still a fresh wound in the heart of the community. There were no holiday decorations or signs of celebration in the Montgomery family home. Richard and Carol welcomed the new year in silence, looking through old photo albums with images of their missing daughter. They declined invitations from friends and chose to spend the night alone, in silent anticipation of the miracle that kept failing to come. "Every phone call makes me flinch," Carol admitted in a conversation with a neighbor a few days later. "I'm still waiting for it to be her, that Ashley will call and tell me she's okay. I know it's silly, but I can't stop hoping." Richard Montgomery, once a gregarious and cheerful man, had changed markedly in the intervening months. He had lost weight, and his dark hair had turned gray. Colleagues at the power plant noted his constant detachment, as if part of his mind was always somewhere far away, occupied with thoughts of his missing daughter. In February of the 2000th year, the case of Ashley's disappearance was handed over to a new Pine Bluff police detective, Samantha Reed. Young and ambitious, she was determined to make progress where her predecessors had failed. "I have carefully reviewed the entire case file," Detective Reed said in her first interview with the local newspaper, the Pine Bluff Courier. "There were certain omissions in the investigation that I intend to correct. We can't go back in time, but we can utilize new forensic techniques not available to investigators last year." At Samantha Reed's initiative, all key witnesses were re-interviewed. She paid special attention to James Peterson, the night security guard at the Blue Diner, the last person to see Ashley before her disappearance. Under hypnosis, James was able to recall additional details about the man in the parking lot. Average height, about 5 feet and 10 inches, slim build, possibly blonde hair poking out from under a baseball cap. A rough portrait was drawn up based on this description, but it was too vague to be useful. Dozens of men in Pine Bluff matched the description, including previously vetted suspects. Detective Reed's efforts yielded no breakthrough in the case. Toward the end of the 2000th year, public interest in Ashley's disappearance began to wane. Local newspapers stopped publishing regular updates on the investigation. The information booth in the town's central square gradually became a familiar part of the landscape to which few people paid attention. In March of 2001, Richard and Carol Montgomery publicly acknowledged for the first time the possibility that their daughter was no longer alive. On Ashley's birthday, which would have been her 25th birthday, they held a memorial service at St. Paul's Church. "We haven't given up hope," Richard said in a trembling voice to the crowd. "But we must learn to live with this uncertainty. Ashley will always be with us, no matter what happens. We just want to know the truth, no matter how horrible it is. The unknown is what kills us every day." Carol was unable to give a speech. She stood silently beside her husband, clutching her daughter's picture in her hands. After the service, many of the town's residents approached them with expressions of condolence, as if recognizing that it was now more of a memorial service than an act of hope. Detective Samantha Reed attended that service. She felt a sense of guilt for not being able to move the investigation forward. Shortly thereafter, she requested a transfer to another department, and Ashley's case was again without active pursuit. That same year, 2001, the town got a new sheriff, John McKenzie, an experienced police officer from the state capital. One of his first acts in his new position was to create a special unit for unsolved crimes, and the Ashley Montgomery case was placed at the top of the list. "Cases like this should not be forgotten," Sheriff McKenzie said at a press conference. "The families of the victims deserve answers, and we owe it to them to do everything we can to provide them. Even if a lot of time has passed, justice has no statute of limitations." Under the new sheriff's initiative, Ashley's DNA samples from her hairbrush and toothbrush were entered into a national database. Her case was registered with the Federal Missing Persons Search Program. Ashley's photo and information about her disappearance were posted on specialized internet portals dedicated to missing persons. But as the years passed, there was no breakthrough in the investigation. Sheriff McKenzie personally met with the Montgomery family every 6 months to update them on the progress of the investigation, but he rarely had anything to report. Periodically, the police received reports of possible Ashley sightings in various parts of the country, but they all turned out to be false alarms. By 2005, when 6 years had passed since Ashley's disappearance, Richard and Carol began the process of legally declaring their daughter dead. It was an agonizing decision, but necessary to resolve a number of legal and financial issues, including insurance and inheritance. "It doesn't mean we're giving up," Richard explained in a rare interview. "We're just acknowledging reality. We will always seek the truth about what happened to our daughter." Ashley Montgomery's official memorial ceremony was held on September 24, 2005, exactly 6 years after her disappearance. A symbolic monument was placed in Pine Bluff Cemetery, a marble angel with the inscription, "Ashley Montgomery, 1976th, 1999, beloved daughter, forever in our hearts." In the town, generations gradually changed. Children born after Ashley's disappearance knew about her only from the stories of their elders or from the annual articles in the local newspaper on the anniversary of the tragedy. For the new generation, she became something of an urban legend, a tragic story from the past. Meanwhile, life went on. The Blue Diner, where Ashley worked, changed ownership in 2003 and was renamed the Riverside Cafe. The abandoned Townsend hardware store remained vacant, gradually falling into disrepair. Local youths avoided it, spreading rumors that it was haunted. Sheriff John McKenzie stayed true to his promise to keep Ashley's case alive. Each year on the anniversary of the disappearance, he personally reviewed the case file, sometimes finding new aspects to check. In 2007, with the advent of new DNA analysis technology, he initiated a retest of all physical evidence, but it was inconclusive. Too little evidence had been collected at the scene of the disappearance. In 2010, the city of Pine Bluff experienced an economic downturn. Several businesses closed, including the power plant where Richard Montgomery worked. At the age of 58, Richard took early retirement and moved with Carol to a smaller house near the center of town. The house in which Ashley grew up was sold to a young family with 2 children. The new owners knew the history of the previous owners and respected their tragedy. They allowed Richard and Carol to take all of Ashley's personal belongings, which they stored in their daughter's pristine room. "Packing Ashley's things felt like we were saying goodbye to her for the second time," Carol admitted to her friend. "But at the same time, it brought some relief. For so long we had lived in a museum, afraid to touch anything that belonged to her. Now we hold on to our dearest memories, but we can move on." On Memorial Day in 2012, the Pine Bluff City Council voted unanimously to install a memorial bench in the park where Ashley loved to walk. The bench, with a bronze plaque engraved with the girl's photo and the words, "In memory of Ashley Montgomery and all missing," became a place where Richard and Carol often spent time reflecting and remembering their daughter. Sheriff McKenzie, despite approaching retirement age, continued to work. In 2013, he contacted the FBI's newly created Behavioral Analysis Unit, specializing in unsolved cases. Profiler psychologists reviewed Ashley's case file and provided their analysis. According to their conclusion, Ashley's disappearance was likely not a random crime, but a pre-planned act by someone who knew her or had been watching her for some time. They also noted the high likelihood that the perpetrator was familiar with the cafe area and its surroundings. The profile indicates a male between the ages of 25 and 40 at the time of the offense, most likely with a history of rejection by women, possibly with a criminal history not necessarily related to violent crimes, the report said. It is highly likely that the offender still resides in the area and may maintain an interest in the case by following press coverage or even participating in victim memorial events. These findings were consistent with police's initial suspicions about Brian Turner and Nathan Foster, but over the years, their life paths had changed drastically. Brian had gotten married, moved to another state, and had little or no ties to Pine Bluff. Nathan continued to live in a neighboring town, worked as a cook in a restaurant, and, as far as police knew, was not causing trouble. With no new leads, Sheriff McKenzie could only keep the case open and periodically review the material. He had personally promised Richard and Carol that he would never stop pursuing the truth, even after he retired. In 2014, on the 15th anniversary of Ashley's disappearance, Sheriff Mackenzie organized a special press conference to draw public attention to the unsolved case. He asked residents of the town and surrounding area to once again recall the events of that day and share any information that might help the investigation. "Time is not always our enemy in cases like this," the sheriff said. "Sometimes people who have kept quiet for years out of fear or loyalty finally decide to tell the truth. We ask anyone with any information, even if it seems insignificant, to contact us." Ashley Montgomery and her family deserve justice. Present at the press conference were Richard and Carol Montgomery, visibly aged but still retaining their dignity. Carol, now 63, could barely hold back tears as reporters showed a photograph of Ashley and a computer model of what she might have looked like now, at age 38. "We've lived 15 years in limbo," Richard said, "not knowing what happened to our daughter, not being able to say goodbye to her properly. All we ask for is the truth, no matter how awful it is." The press conference was covered not only by local media, but also by regional media. Ashley Montgomery's story briefly came back into the public eye. The police received several calls offering new leads and speculation, but nothing substantial. It seemed that the Ashley Montgomery case would forever remain one of Pine Bluff's unsolved mysteries. The town was gradually changing, with new events displacing old ones from the minds of the inhabitants. The generation that remembered Ashley personally became fewer and fewer, and the new residents knew of her only from annual newspaper articles or from old-timers. Ashley's disappearance gradually became part of town folklore, a story told to teenagers as a cautionary tale. But for Sheriff Mackenzie, the Ashley case remained an unfinished business that kept him busy. In his spare time, he returned to the investigation files, rereading witness statements and studying photos from the scene. He could not rid himself of the feeling that he had missed something important, some detail that might shed light on the fate of the missing girl. The 5th of November, 2014, was unusually cold for Arkansas. The first frost had come to Pine Bluff earlier than usual, covering the withered grass and bare branches of the trees with a thin layer of hoarfrost. On this day, Robert Jenkins, the new owner of the former Townsend hardware store building, arrived at the site accompanied by an architect and a building contractor. Robert, a successful entrepreneur from the state capital, purchased the abandoned building at auction 3 months ago. His plans were ambitious: to turn the dilapidated structure into a modern shopping center with restaurants and stores that would breathe new life into this part of town. "The building is in worse condition than we anticipated," noted architect Andrew Collins, inspecting the rotten floor joists and mold-covered walls. "But the main foundation seems solid. We'll need to check the basement to assess the condition of the supporting structures. Townsend Hardware's basement hasn't been used in years. Back under the previous owner, Harry Townsend, only rarely needed merchandise and old equipment were stored there. After the store closed in 1999, the basement had been completely abandoned because of persistent damp problems. The heavy metal door leading into the basement struggled to yield to the efforts of the 3 men. The rusted hinges creaked protestingly, as if warning the uninvited guests not to disturb the peace of this forgotten place. "Hell, you could make a horror movie in here," contractor Mike Green joked, shining a flashlight into the darkness. The beam revealed a steep concrete staircase covered in years of dust. Once down the stairs, the men found themselves in a spacious room with a low ceiling and concrete walls. The air was musty, with a distinct smell of mold and rotting wood. In the light of the lanterns, they saw old shelves, toolboxes, and cardboard boxes rotten with damp. "We'll have to move all this stuff out and start fresh," Robert said, looking around. "I want to turn the basement into a wine cellar for a future restaurant. The temperature here is just right." The men began to look around the room, assessing the scope of work to be done. Andrew Collins took notes on the condition of the foundation, and Mike Green estimated how much time and money it would take to clear the space. In the far corner of the basement was a small storage room, separated from the main room by a thin partition. The door to it was locked. "Strange," Robert noted, tugging on the knob. "Why lock an empty pantry in an abandoned building?" The lock was old, but strong. Mike Green brought a tire iron from the car, and after a few minutes the door gave way. The inside of the storeroom was dark, the light from the flashlights barely breaking through the dense veil of dust that rose from the movement of the door. What they saw inside made them freeze in horror. In a corner of the pantry, on an old mattress, lay human remains. The skeleton, still partially clad in decayed clothing, seemed to stare at them with the empty eye sockets of a skull. "My God," Robert whispered, retreating toward the exit. His face was pale, his hands trembling. Mike Green, the first to regain consciousness, pulled out his cell phone and called the police. "We found human remains in the basement of the former Townsend hardware store," he informed the dispatcher. "We need police." 20 minutes later, the first patrol cars arrived on the scene. Sheriff John McKenzie personally led a team that cordoned off the building. In 15 years of serving Pine Bluff, he had never encountered a find like this in his quiet town. "No one is to enter the building until forensics arrives," the sheriff ordered as he set up a security perimeter around the former store. By late afternoon that day, the entire town knew about the find. A small crowd of curious people had gathered in front of the cordoned-off building. Among them were those who remembered the unsolved Ashley Montgomery case, whispering suggestions of a possible connection. Forensics worked in the basement all night, meticulously documenting every detail and gathering evidence. On the morning of November 6th, Sheriff McKenzie personally called Richard and Carol Montgomery, asking them to come to the police station. "We can't say with certainty, but there is a possibility that the remains found belong to your daughter," the sheriff said, looking into the eyes of the aging parents. "We'll need a DNA sample for comparison." Carol cried silently, and Richard squeezed her hand tightly. After 15 years of uncertainty, they could finally have answers, but the price of those answers was too high. "We've waited a long time for this moment," Richard said in a trembling voice. "But now I'm not sure I'm ready to hear the truth." That same day, the remains were taken to the forensic laboratory in the state capitol. A preliminary examination revealed that the skeleton belonged to a young woman between the ages of 20 and 25, about 5 feet and 6 inches tall. The time of death was determined to be about 15 years ago, which corresponded to the period of Ashley's disappearance. On November 7th, 1999, Dr. Amanda Wilson, the state's chief medical examiner, made an important discovery. The back of the skull had a rounded hole about half an inch in diameter, the hallmark of a gunshot wound. It appears that the victim was killed by a close-range gunshot to the back of the head, Dr. Wilson concluded in her report. The lack of bullet holes in the pantry walls indicates that the murder occurred elsewhere, and the body was moved to the basement posthumously. Among the clothing remains, forensic investigators found a partially preserved denim jacket and a white t-shirt, the exact clothes witnesses said Ashley was wearing on the day she disappeared. In the pocket of the decayed jacket, found a heavily time-damaged chain with a pendant in the shape of half a heart, a gift that Richard and Carol gave their daughter on her 20th birthday. On November 10, DNA test results confirmed the worst fears. The remains found belonged to Ashley Montgomery. Sheriff McKenzie personally broke the news to her parents after arriving at their home. "I'm so sorry," were the only words he could utter as he looked at their grief-stricken faces. The news of the victim's confirmed identity spread instantly across the city. That evening, hundreds of Pine Bluff residents gathered in the plaza in front of City Hall with candles in hand to honor Ashley's memory and show support for her family. "For 15 years, we lived with the hope that Ashley was alive," said Richard Montgomery, addressing the crowd. "Now we know the bitter truth. But that knowledge, however painful, brings a kind of relief. We can now properly say goodbye to our daughter." Meanwhile, the Ashley Montgomery murder investigation entered a new phase. Sheriff Mackenzie had formed a task force of experienced detectives, joined by FBI agents who specialized in long, unsolved crimes. The first thing investigators focused on was the very location where the body was found. The former Townsend hardware store had ceased operations in April of 1999, 5 months before Ashley's disappearance. The building remained abandoned, but was technically owned by the bank that had taken it to pay off Harry Townsend's debts. The bank had the keys to the store, but a lot of people could have had access to the building, noted Detective Ray Hawkins, who is prosecuting the case. The locks were not changed after closing, and the alarm system was disabled for cost reasons. In fact, anyone who had anything to do with the store in the past could have easily gotten in. Forensic investigators thoroughly examined the storeroom where the remains were found. Despite the passage of 15 years, they were able to uncover a number of important clues. On the floor of the storeroom, under a decayed mattress, they found several stains that, when chemically analyzed, turned out to be traces of blood. A DNA test confirmed that the blood belonged to Ashley Montgomery. This supports the theory that the body was hidden in the basement shortly after the murder, Dr. Wilson reported. Given the location of the blood traces and their nature, it would suggest that the victim was killed elsewhere, but some bleeding continued after death while the body was being transported. The pantry also revealed the remains of a rope that was presumably used to bind the victim's hands. Despite the significant deterioration of organic materials over the years, experts were able to determine that the rope was of a specific type used in construction and repair work. Another important find was a .38 caliber bullet lodged in the mattress under the body. Ballistics analysis showed that it was fired from a Smith & Wesson revolver, a common weapon that is difficult to trace without having the gun itself for comparison. On November 12th, investigators checked Townsend Hardware's employee records for the year 1999. A total of 15 people worked at the store, including the owner. Most of them still resided in Pine Bluff or neighboring towns. "We will re-interview all former employees," Sheriff Mackenzie said at the press briefing. "The focus will be on those who had access to the keys to the basement. We will also be checking their whereabouts on the day Ashley Montgomery disappeared." Of particular interest to investigators was the fact that the hardware store was only 2 miles from the Blue Diner Cafe where Ashley was last seen. This proximity was not properly considered in the original investigation, although the abandoned store was checked among other sites. In reviewing old police reports, we found that the inspection of the Townsend hardware basement in 1999 was superficial, Sheriff Mackenzie admitted. The locked storage room where the body was hidden is not mentioned in the documents at all. Perhaps it was simply overlooked or deliberately missed by the officers conducting the search. This circumstance has sparked rumors of possible police corruption or incompetence on the part of the original investigative team. Sheriff Mackenzie categorically rejected these speculations, emphasizing that in 1999, the police acted in accordance with the protocols of the time and the resources available. By November 15th, investigators had interviewed 12 of the store's 15 former employees. The 3 remaining had either moved to other states or passed away in the intervening years. The interviews yielded no direct evidence, but helped build a more complete picture of the store's operations and access to the basement. From the testimony of former store manager Thomas Reed, only the managers and storekeepers had access to the basement, 5 or 6 people in all. The regular salesmen almost never went down there. Keys were kept in the office, but shortly before the store closed, the key accounting system was practically inoperative because of the general chaos. On November 18th, FBI agents presented an updated psychological profile of the alleged killer based on the new information. The perpetrator likely acted alone. The care with which the body was hidden and the choice of a low-access location indicate pre-planning. The murder was not an impulsive act, but probably the result of a growing conflict or obsessive attraction to the victim. The profile also indicated that the perpetrator must have known the store building well and had easy access to it even after closing time. He probably possessed physical strength sufficient to move his body. He was between 25 and 40 years of age in 1999, and he had some connection with the victim, either knowing her personally or having watched her for some time. On November 20th, another breakthrough in the investigation occurred. While re-examining the body scene, forensics found a small metal object rolled under the baseboard. It was a cufflink engraved with the letter B. Despite the corrosion, the engraving remained legible. "This find may be the key to identifying the killer," Detective Hawkins stated. "The cufflink most likely belonged to the person involved in hiding the body. The engraving may indicate his first or last name." By late November, investigators had compiled a list of 5 prime suspects, including Ashley's ex-fiancé Brian Turner, her co-worker Nathan Foster, and 3 former Townsend Hardware employees who had access to the basement and worked there during the period close to Ashley's disappearance. The investigation revealed that one of the store's former storekeepers, William Braxton, had a theft conviction and was the last person to close the store before its final closing in April 1999. Records show that he kept a set of keys to all the premises, including the basement, which he was supposed to return to the owner, but failed to do so. On November 25th, detectives obtained a search warrant for Braxton's home, but found that the suspect had left town in a hurry. According to neighbors, he had left 2 days earlier, saying he was going to visit relatives in Tennessee. "We have issued a wanted notice for William Braxton as a person of interest in the investigation," Sheriff McKenzie told reporters. "We have reason to believe he may possess information critical to the Ashley Montgomery murder investigation." Meanwhile, the Forensic Medical Examiner's Office has completed a comprehensive examination of the remains. The experts concluded that Ashley Montgomery's death was caused by a gunshot wound to the head. The time of death corresponded to the date of her disappearance, the 24th of September, 1999, with a possible error of 1 or 2 days. On December 1st, 2014, Ashley Montgomery was officially buried. Her remains were cremated according to the wishes of the family. The ceremony was attended by hundreds of Pine Bluff residents, many of whom had participated in the search 15 years earlier. "Today we say goodbye to our daughter," Richard Montgomery said at the ceremony. "But our fight for justice is just beginning. We will not rest until the man who took Ashley from us is held accountable for his crime." December of 2014 was unusually severe in Pine Bluff. Snow, a rare visitor to these parts, covered the town in a blanket of white. At the police station, the atmosphere was red hot as the investigation into the murder of Ashley Montgomery entered a decisive phase. Sheriff John McKenzie hardly ever left his office, coordinating the investigative team. The walls were hung with crime scene photos and lists of suspects. In the center of this makeshift board was a photograph of William Braxton, a former Townsend Hardware storekeeper who was wanted. Detective Ray Hawkins, studying the biography of the suspect, found an interesting detail. In the year 2003, Braxton founded a construction company. Over the past decade, it has grown from a small firm to a serious player in the real estate market of Pine Bluff. "And what do we know about his life before he founded the company?" the sheriff asked. After Townsend Hardware closed, he worked on various construction projects, then disappeared from Pine Bluff for a couple years. Presumably he was in Texas, and came back in 2003 already with seed money for his business. Meanwhile, the forensic lab has completed its analysis of the B-engraved cufflinks found in the basement. Microscopic examination revealed skin particles on it, preserved in the smallest recesses of the metal. Modern methods of DNA analysis made it possible to isolate genetic material. Obtaining a DNA sample from the missing suspect seemed like an impossible task, but detectives got lucky. During a search of Braxton's home, they seized several personal hygiene items, including a toothbrush and a hairbrush. On December 7th, the results came back. The DNA from the cufflinks matched William Braxton's DNA with a 99.9% probability. Sheriff Mackenzie obtained a federal warrant for Braxton's arrest on suspicion of murder. All police departments within a 500-mile radius have been notified. Detective Hawkins, looking through old photographs from city events, discovered a shocking detail. Braxton attended several memorial services honoring Ashley. In a photograph from the 2005 ceremony, he even stood not far from the girl's parents with an expression of genuine sympathy on his face. On December 10th, William Braxton himself contacted police through his attorney, stating his willingness to return to Pine Bluff and cooperate with the investigation. He categorically denied any involvement in the murder. On December 12th, Braxton returned to Pine Bluff and was immediately taken to the police station for questioning. He looked solid in his 41 years, expensive suit, confident manners, attentive gaze. Sheriff Mackenzie personally conducted the interrogation, which lasted more than 4 hours. Braxton admitted that he knew Ashley Montgomery. She sometimes came into the hardware store. However, he adamantly denied involvement in her disappearance and death. "I was shocked when I found out her body was found in the basement of Townsend Hardware," Braxton said. "Yes, I worked there as a storekeeper, had access to the basement. But I didn't kill her. I probably lost the cufflink while working there, long before Ashley disappeared." Despite the convincing explanation, Sheriff Mackenzie decided to hold Braxton for further investigation. The main argument was the presence of his DNA at the crime scene. In the original investigation, Braxton claimed to have spent the evening of Ashley's disappearance at home with his then-girlfriend, Sarah Johnson. Sarah confirmed this, but now, 15 years later, Detective Hawkins decided to re-interview the woman. Sarah, now married and living in a neighboring town, reluctantly agreed to be interviewed. During the tense conversation, she finally admitted that she had lied in 1999. "William asked me to confirm that he was with me that night. I agreed because I loved him. In fact, he didn't get home until around midnight, looked agitated and took a shower right away. I don't know where he was." That confession was a turning point in the investigation. Braxton had lied about his alibi on the night of Ashley's disappearance. On December 14, 2014, in the presence of reporters, Sheriff John Mackenzie formally announced the arrest of William Braxton on charges of Ashley Montgomery's murder. The news of Braxton's arrest shook Pine Bluff to its core. Over the years, he had become a respected member of the community, sponsored town events, and donated money to charity. Many refused to believe he was guilty. However, the investigation continued to find new evidence. Forensic investigators found a box of Ashley's personal belongings in his home, in a hiding place under the bedroom floorboards, her driver's license, earrings, and several photos cut from her high school yearbook. On December 15th, investigators reconstructed the full picture of the crime. According to their version, Braxton was obsessed with Ashley, secretly watched her for several months. On the evening of September 24th, 1999, he caught up with her in the parking lot of a cafe and, taking advantage of his acquaintance, offered a ride home. Instead, he brought Ashley to an abandoned hardware store, where he killed her shot in the back of the head and hid the body in the basement pantry. Particularly shocking was the fact that after the murder, Braxton not only remained living in Pine Bluff, but was actively involved in the town, including activities related to Ashley's search and memory. What's more, he maintained a relationship with the Montgomery family. His construction company repaired the roof of their home at no cost after the hurricane in 2008. "This is a classic case of psychopathic behavior," explained the FBI's consulting psychiatrist. "The killer stays close to the victim's family, watching their suffering while presenting himself as a sympathetic friend." Richard and Carol Montgomery were shocked to learn who killed their daughter. They had known Braxton all these years, accepted his help, unaware that he was the one who had caused them unbearable pain. "I shook hands with my daughter's killer," Richard said bitterly at the press conference. "He looked me in the eye, expressed his condolences, and all the while knew what he had done to our Ashley." On December 18th, While in custody, William Braxton requested a meeting with Sheriff Mackenzie. In the presence of his attorney and a representative of the prosecutor's office, he made a full confession. "I loved her," Braxton began, his voice sounding strangely calm. "I came to the cafe almost every day to see her, but she barely noticed me. When the store closed, I lost my job, felt like a nobody. And then I saw her in the parking lot that night, decided to talk. I offered her a ride. She agreed. We drove, talked about different things. I confessed my feelings, but she just laughed, said she'd never date someone like me. I don't remember what happened next. I just remember I was in the basement, and she was dead." On December 21st, he was formally charged with first-degree murder. The prosecutor announced that he would seek the maximum penalty allowed by state law. Pine Bluff plunged into a state of collective shock and mourning. Residents of the town who thought the worst was long behind them were once again confronted with painful memories. Many felt guilty for accepting the killer into their circle. "We need to learn from this tragedy," Sheriff Mackenzie said, addressing the townspeople. "Evil may hide under the mask of an ordinary, respectable man, but justice, however delayed, will always find its way." On December 24th, Richard and Carol Montgomery visited their daughter's grave. For the first time in 15 years, they could grieve with a full understanding of what had happened. "You can rest in peace now, dear," Carol whispered, touching the cold marble. "Justice has been done." Ashley Montgomery's case was closed, but her memory lived on in the hearts of the people of Pine Bluff.